Welcome to the Off Tackle with John Fina Show on the Overreaction Sports Network.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome once again to the Sahlen's Off Tackle Show with John Fina. I'm the Big O, Jerry Ostrowski. He is the man, John Fina, and as we do on Monday nights, we bring to you the latest from the Buffalo Bills game as far as, what we see in the trenches and things like that. Always awesome to spend some time with John talking about blocking and defensive line play and everything else. And as always, folks, hit the like, subscribe, rate the show. This is the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network presented by FanDuel, and we're happy to be here on a Victory Monday. John, what's going on, man?
Hey, Jerry, just celebrating Victory Monday, man. I mean, nothing prettier than a W in that column. End of the year, no matter how far you go, it's still a W. You got to win the next one, but stacking W's is a big freaking deal, especially this late in the season. So I'm feeling pretty good, man. How about you?
Yeah, feeling pretty good. I mean, obviously, watching the
All-22. Not
good,
huh?
Well, I think we might be cutting out a little bit, having a little bit of difficulty. I'll check it in a second, but honestly, watching the All-22 film, John, I don't feel much different than I did the other day. Honestly, I mean, I did think we did some really good stuff, blocking wise early. I think the second half it fell apart a little bit, but overall, not the most strong performance by the Buffalo Bills, but they found a way to get it done. And I think that was probably the main emphasis going into this game, John, was to try to keep yourselves out of peril. Just make sure you get that W and get set to play Philadelphia this week, which is what they did.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, the film didn't reveal anything much different than what we talked about last night. I did see some just great individual plays, and I saw a couple of head scratchers. One that stuck out to me was when we brought the house and they ran screen, and Cole Bishop is staring a 315-pound lineman in the face coming right at him, and he dips, rips, and gets the ankles of the running back and makes that tackle. It was just, I rewound that a handful of times. I was just so proud of that kid. I mean, what an incredible play in that moment. And then on the flip side of it, there were just instances where Josh was just, I think, tentative. And I always look at the drops. We both played tackle. You played a lot of guard and a lot of tackle. And I always look at depth of drop. And I start to get this feeling Josh spends so much time going into his drop that he can't really get there, set his feet, and then hit those quick reads. And, teams now are learning they got to compress the pocket against the Bills. So I wonder if, that might be a coaching point they pick up on. Josh, get to 8, set, step, throw. There's a little too much hesitation. And he missed a number of times on that second sack. I have it in my notes here. He had both Ty Johnson and Josh Palmer open. Just didn't pull the trigger. It was a little bit perplexing.
I think in the second half, a lot of his issues with the overthrows and things like that were directly related to the foot injury. I think the foot injury is something that we really need to pay attention to this week. I think it's a little bit more involved than maybe people want to let on. I think that's why the ball sailed a little bit on him in the second half. And then, of course, we also had a couple instances where you had good throws to James Cook. You had another great throw to Cooks, Brandon Cooks, that was dropped. That's 2 weeks in a row now, big drops downfield by him. So I think just all in all, and it kind of all snowballed downhill after the circus-like scramble and 22-yard loss, give myself up, sack at the goal line, which you give up 22 yards, you put your team in peril, not good complimentary football. And on top of it, oh, yeah, by the way, I hurt my own foot. So it's like I think things went downhill after that. But obviously the Bills have a week to get ready for the Philadelphia Eagles, defending Super Bowl champions. At Orchard Park will be a huge game. And, definitely rolling into this game, John. I don't think anybody's saying, hey, man, we're firing on all cylinders and we don't have much to work on. We got quite a bit to work on, honestly.
That is the case. What I found very interesting, and I was looking at specifically the run game in the second half after all the success that Cook had, and I didn't pull up any of these clips, but what Cleveland did really well in the second half to stop weak zone, specifically weak zone, is they used a lot of defensive line stunts. Guys weren't staying static. They were moving very quickly. And I got a clip. We'll talk about what happens when they're static. And then we can talk about this philosophy that we have and how when guys are moving laterally, it either kills us or we gash them. And I think before we had a chance to adjust, it was late in the game. They were really kind of stout against our run game, minus a couple of runs, one by Ray Davis, a few early in the second half by James Cook. But once again, thanks everybody for jumping into the Sahlen's Off Tackle Show with me, John Fina, presented by FanDuel. We are incredibly honored and privileged to have Sahlen's be our sponsor. You see the ball cap, Jerry?
Yes, I do. I see that.
And what can I tell you about Sahlen's that I haven't already told you, and about what you know, having eaten probably a couple hundred of them yourself, like me when I was in Buffalo. But it was founded in 1869 as a family business and continues to be operated by the Sahlen family today. Headquartered in Buffalo, New York, Sahlen products have grown from Western New York's favorite hot dog to having our hot dogs and deli meat available across the country in 35 states now. So if you're hankering for a Sahlen's, first, check your local retailer. They might carry them. Second, if they don't, go to Sahlen.com and have Sahlen hot dogs and deli meats shipped directly to you. Put them on that bun, slather them with mustard, put some kraut on it, do a chili cheese dog. Heck, Jerry, it is always hot dog season when you have a quality dog like Sahlen's. So check it out. Get your Sahlen's, get your dog on. And thanks again for Sahlen's for sponsoring the show. Jerry, let's jump right into the film. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it, man. Go ahead. Pull some clips up.
I know people love it. I got a variety of clips here. One thing you and I have been talking about for a really long time is our beloved Greg Rousseau, who seems to struggle a little bit in get off and in the pass game. And something must have clicked, because I think in this game, first of all, I've been arguing that Greg Rousseau needs to be in a three-point stance, and we're seeing a lot more of that. I've also lobbied with my ESPN directly to Greg that he has to get more physical with his hands. Instead of coming in and just pushing, got to work the offender's hands a little bit more. So I'm going to roll this clip for you. You talk to me about his get off, his hand action, his hand jive, and tell me what you think. Here comes Greg Rousseau. It's a little choppy, Jerry. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run it one more time, see if we can get rid of the chop.
So I think the biggest thing in that rush was, John, and I think Rousseau, when he uses his length, that's always good. And I think the deal with Rousseau out of a three-point stance, and this is something you've been talking about for quite some time, rushers that go from low to high are sometimes tough to handle. And when you've got a guy like Rousseau who's so long, coming from low to high, he's able to get those hands inside, get that length, use the power, and that creates issues, because look at where the offensive tackle's hands are. Look how high they are. They're not on the cylinder. They're way outside. So Rousseau's won this rep right there. So I think that's the biggest thing with Greg is we know he likes to rush out of a two-point quite a bit, but he loses some of that length advantage that he gains when he comes from a three-point, comes from low to high. So I think that's a big part of this. I know you've been talking about it, and he did a really good job of it yesterday.
Yeah, I love seeing him work that inside long arm. And what's really intricate here is the inside long arm starts that tackle regressing, going backwards, puts him on skates a little bit. But then the right hand, Jerry, this is great. He pushes the left hand off of him, and you can see the tackle's left arm up in the air, just like you mentioned. And then from there, it's a reset of the right hand onto the breastplate. He just drives him directly back into Shedeur Sanders here. I want to see more of this. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that people need to understand that to translate power from the lower half or from the body through an opponent, you have to have hand usage. That's the only thing that gets that power translated from yourself through the player you're going against. So when Greg uses that length and gets those hands on him, he's able to translate that power. And it's something that I think he does better, like you believe as well, out of a three-point stance.
Yeah. When you can get a chance to roll your hips, right? So you start low and he gets that left hand in there and he's able to roll his hips and get a little bit of lift going. And that press, he does a terrific job here. We hope to see a little bit more of this out of Greg Rousseau, who had a fantastic game. He was on my you-know-what list a little bit. This isn't quite an apology tour. If he continues this, I will issue an apology, mostly just to you, Jerry.
That sounds good, John. You probably owe me one for something at some point in time.
So, Jerry, I never played guard. And this is an interesting clip that I actually wasn't going to bring up, but Torrance, who, by the way, I thought did not have a fantastic game yesterday, but he did this twice in a row on the backside of weak zone where he just drifted a little bit too laterally and he didn't come vertical. And the crazy thing is later on, he makes an adjustment. He starts climbing Schwessinger here. This is 49. It's a tough name to say, but it ends up that he's a little lateral. He makes an adjustment later on. Tell me a little bit about the theory, the whys, and why nots about, kind of coming up vertically on a three technique.
So I think if you run this back, John, one of the things that's really tough about playing guard here is you've got Schwessinger that's lined up over top of the center. So you got to get an angle to him, right? But the other problem is you've got a player on your outside shoulder. What that does sometimes is it creates what you would call a pick issue, and you're going to get that here. Osiris does a really good job of getting down inside quickly, but when he has to go vertical to get to 49, because 49, he does a good job of slow playing a little bit, doesn't overcommit, so he can get back over top of the formation to try to get this cutback. Now when Torrance tries to get backside, you'll see it here in a moment, Spencer Brown's driving his man inside, creates that natural pick, and Schwessinger is able to get over top and make this tackle for it. Now, granted, it's a 4 or 5 yard gain, but there was 2 or 3 times if Torrance was able to get to 49 clean, we might be talking about one-on-one with 33, and we might be touching the goalpost as far as, James Cook with a couple more touchdown runs. So I think the hardest thing is, you want to go ahead, and if you go back to the beginning, and I know you talked about the adjustment he made later, and it's hard because I think sometimes the Bills really, teach this. I think Cromer really teaches, doesn't want to do too much double teaming inside, because sometimes that creates piles and you don't get these cutback lanes. And the Bills seem to be really, really cognizant or trying to force angles at all times. But if he takes that step with his left foot, and then with his second step, his right foot goes more north than inside, he can go through the inside shoulder of that guy, but then also keep himself in position to fall back off of this and square up with Schwessinger, as opposed to being on his inside out and maybe almost pushing him back into the run. So he does make that adjustment later. I think you see more of a double team on the left-hand side or on our right-hand side with David Edwards and McGovern. But it is something that, you have to be cognizant of and something to be aware of. This is a game of angles. It's a game of, body position. And when you got a 300-some-pound man that's all his momentum's going inside at a fast rate of speed, it's hard to put the brakes on and change direction. And once you make that adjustment, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm kind of old school. I'm of the stay squarer category, right?
We all were. That's what was ingrained in us, John.
Yeah, and when I think about inside zone or weak zone, I just think the possibility of cutback behind the center, like everybody thinks that Thurman Thomas made all those yards on the play side. And Tom Bresnahan used to rewind it for us all the time and say, he's virtually running downhill from the place that he caught the ball, but everything else is moving past him. So when I constantly run that through my head, and to me, this should be a more vertical step with his right foot. His right arm should be extended, just as a kind of a antenna feeling on the three technique here, and then trying to get north. And crazily, they made that adjustment a little bit later on. Right. And what you talked about just a second ago, we're going to go to the next play and talk about this idea of fewer double teams at the line and creating more depth, more opportunities for less clutter, and more opportunities for James Cook to burst through minor little holes or things of that nature. So the next one, I love this play because we get vertical, we get on to the next level straight away, no hesitation. And what we end up with is, look at the big bodies, Jerry. So we're talking toss here. I'll run it.
And what I want people to understand, and I have another version of this from earlier in the game that I'll show right after John's, that gives another version. It gives the backside version of it. You can see it a little differently. This isn't really zone, okay? So we talk about the Bills and the way they tweak things weekly with new run looks. This week they did two things. They did a pin and pull look that I'll show later on, and then this here, which is toss stretch, which is there's really no double teams or you're trying to go from one to the other. You are running your track as hard as you can to cut your man off. And, the Bills threw this in this week. Of course, if you watch Josh, he opens up to his left, which kind of causes a little bit of a hesitation by these linebackers. And then when the toss comes back the other way, it gives those linemen a chance to set their angles a little better. And the Bills did a very good job of this because that group of five up front runs very, very well.
Yeah, they do. And I wanted to emphasize that too, that point. You and I were at training camp practice talking about how it's almost like they're running to a spot and they're forcing the inside guys to decide who to play, but naturally opens up seams. It seems if you look at the right side of your screen, Dawkins is just barreling down to the second level on an angle. And there goes McGovern, and there goes Spencer Brown. And then you'll see a tight end popping into the screen a little bit later on. And we've got four blockers at the second level now, almost all of them fully engaged across the board. Deion's on his guy, McGovern's on his guy, and we've got Spencer Brown on his guy. Number 7 is going to be eaten up. I think it's by Reggie Gilliam. Or sorry, it's a tight end. I think it looks like Knox there. And look at that gaping hole. So this idea of just kind of exploding the line of scrimmage in a lateral type of way takes some of the clutter out and just gives a guy like James Cook, who's just fabulous at vision and, deciding right now, I'm going to go there with a burst of speed and heading downhill. So we're lucky to have him. We're lucky really to have a guy like Cromer who understands the skill set of our running back and is really featuring the type of schemes that give him a chance just to get loose. Because James Cook at the second level, he's going to make a guy make half a tackle. He's going to pick up 4 to 6 or 7 more, or break that tackle and take it all the way to the house, which we saw in this game. Fantastic.
Yeah, let me pull this other version of it up real quick. So here's another view from it. You got Hawes going back across, and here it is, toss sweep.
Run that back, Jerry, and give me a pause about 2 seconds after the play is snapped. We can see all those jerseys going downfield. Okay, right there,
right about
off the line of scrimmage. If you can pause that on the snap, we're going to see just this thing that you and I were talking about, where we're just running to a spot on an angle. Look at McDermott. I always want to say McDermott. Look at McGovern. He's just taken off.
Look at Spencer Brown. And that's another thing you have to look at as well. He's not going to the man. He's going to a spot where that man will be an intersection point, so to speak. You got Shave on the outside with a little inside crack, a pin block there, and Reggie cleaning up the outside. Really good stuff.
Jerry, is any of this possible if we don't have guys like Shavers, Hawes, Knox really dedicated to that block on the edge against a very big physical defensive end?
No, exactly. I mean, that's the biggest thing right now with Buffalo. You got willing participants at the receiver position making blocks that a lot of receivers in this league won't make. So obviously that's a big reason why these plays go.
Awesome. Jerry, it makes me hungry. It makes me hungry for more when I see that kind of stuff.
Is that right, John? It makes you hungry. How about we have a little bit of Anchor Bar to quench that hunger, John?
Oh, satisfied.
the Anchor Bar that in 1964 Frank and Teresa Bellissimo invented the wonderful chicken wing. Their jumbo chicken wings, always fresh, never frozen, come from original sauce all the way to a variety of sauces that they now offer you. And the beautiful thing about it is, if you can't get to Buffalo to go to the Anchor Bar, you can go to one of 17 cities where they have Anchor Bar franchises. Raleigh, North Carolina, Frisco will have one soon. The newest one, Tucson, Arizona, where my man John Fina is. And John can go a couple days in a row and have wings. And if he walks in and says, I want something a little bit different, he can get a beef on weck. He can get a pizza. Maybe he's a little bit worried. He's putting on a few pounds, wants to fit into that tuxedo for the wedding coming up. He can have a wrap or a salad. You have all kinds of options at the Anchor Bar. And again, the original chicken wing invented in 1964 in the city of Buffalo. Frank and Teresa Bellissimo, when they were trying to figure out what to do with these undesirable parts of the chicken, they invented the chicken wing, and we are blessed for them doing it. So as always, you're in Buffalo, hit up the Anchor Bar. If you're in one of 17 cities with a franchise, do that as well. And we are proud to say we are partners with, and the Anchor Bar sponsors us here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network.
Yeah, Jerry, before you jump into a few more plays and we talk it out, our beloved and faithful Richard Rush poses a question or just a statement to us both. And there's a lot of this going around on social media. We would not be, we wouldn't be doing our jobs if we didn't address it. So I'm lofting this to you because I didn't want it lofted to me.
I think that the word that we're using
from Richard Rush, not a question. I think they played too scared. I think they played too scared of Myles Garrett, Jerry. I think you did, Jerry. Come on, what's up, Jerry? You scared of one guy?
I don't think the word is scared. I think they showed too much respect for Myles Garrett. And the reason I say that is this: flu or no flu, practice or no practice. We've got Deion Dawkins, we've got Knox, we've got Kincaid, we've got Hawes, we've got Reggie Gilliam. We've got people that can neutralize. When I say neutralize, it's the old Dan Patrick saying, you're not going to stop him. You only wish to contain him, right? And we can handle him. And I think that you have to show him that respect, and you've got to do some things away from him. That's why this toss happened, right? If we're all running and tossing to the right, who's over there unblocked, kind of standing around with nothing to do? Myles Garrett. If we roll out the pocket and we run play action to the left, what's happening? We're taking care of Myles with the play action, rolling away from him. So we did play the majority of the game on half of the field and our right side of the field, which is some of the stuff why stunts from Cleveland worked in the second half, because it's not hard to guess when the other team's running to the one side of the field. So I personally would have liked to see more variety out of this Bills offense. I understand what they were getting at. I understand that 23-20 is still a win. I get all those things. But in this case, we've got good football players. We can do some things with him without just taking half of the field away. So scared might be a little too strong of a word. I think extreme respect is probably a better phrase when talking about what went down yesterday in Cleveland.
All right, my turn. Great points, Jerry. I totally agree with you in part. Actually, 90%. And the thing that kind of bothers me, and I'm going to ask this, I've never been in the booth in a coaching staff, but I'm watching the film today, and I got to think that when the Bills are on offense, we have to have people watching what they're doing up front defensively. And it was very clear to me after watching several plays that weak zone and even toss was getting adversely affected by the movement that the Cleveland's defensive line was doing, a lot of lateral movement. And to me, there's got to be a pivot. And I think what you were talking about, and this is where I totally agree with you, we have to have an answer for that. We ran 2 running plays in this entire game. We ran weak zone and we ran strong toss. And the only outlier, Jerry's going to show us in a second, but I think when there's a lot of movement, occasionally you got to get to some sort of pin pull scheme and, bring a little bit more variety, because eventually defenses catch up to you. And when they did, we just kept doing the same thing. So I think we could have blown the game wide open with 2 passes Josh could have thrown better, and with 3 catches that were dropped. But beyond that, if those things happen, we have to have a better answer in the run game.
Well, I think the answer is this: when you have a team that runs 78, almost 80% of the time man coverage in the secondary, you should be able to win some routes outside. So I think that's why things maybe look the way they did, don't have the confidence in the receiver room to win consistently on the outside. And when they did, they dropped the ball. But that's just kind of a blatant – I mean, when you're a coordinator and you roll out – if you looked at the numbers throughout the NFL this week, 78% was like 40-some% more than the next team as far as running man coverage. So obviously Cleveland had no fear of the outside passing game, did what they did. And if you really want to get down to brass tacks, I guess you'd have to say, if you want to look at it, they get the dub running an extremely limited playbook. I mean, extremely limited. But I wanted to show a couple things on here, John, real quick, and we'll get to them. And just
let's go.
Kind of how did the Bills, try to neutralize Myles Garrett, so to speak. And when I say neutralize, again, you don't ever really totally neutralize him or stop him, but how did they handle him? First deal here is with a slide technique. So if you watch this play, and I'll stop it right before the snap count, McGovern is going to slide to his left. So they have gone ahead, and the linebacker that's over top of Deion Dawkins, they've identified him as the man they're sliding to. So if you start from McGovern, you have 1, David Edwards 2, Deion Dawkins 3 for 3 guys right here. The inside D tackle, the linebacker, and Myles Garrett out here in this scary Usain Bolt-looking track stance as a 285, 90-pound man, right? So this guy here with the 73 on his back is definitely going, come help me, even as good as Deion is, and we know he's great. So what this does is, knowing that they're sliding to him, this tells Deion, and John would tell you this because we did it all the time as players, that frees him up. He doesn't have to be so super cautious to worry about Myles Garrett beating him on the inside because he's got inside help. And if you watch this play, it's exactly what happens.
Yeah,
he
so
goes
Deion
inside, and there's David Edwards.
Yeah, Deion takes his Deion set, which
right.
always makes me blink twice. But you're right, Jerry. So what he can do is he can make sure that Myles Garrett doesn't beat him up the field. So he wants to get plenty vertical just to invite him inside because he knows he has help. I just wonder why the Browns don't try to sugar him by bringing a linebacker up on the line of scrimmage, sugar David Edwards, and force him to have slower timing, get out to help Deion. But really, Deion doesn't look great in this situation, but he did exactly what he needed to do, which was force Myles Garrett to come inside where the help is. And you're right. I mean, this is the type of respect that you give a guy like that, and the type of game planning that you do. If you consider like you have another beast defensive end, then occasionally you got to look at a chip type situation. But it was clear in the scouting that the Bills weren't terribly worried about too much A-gap pressure, where they felt like they could continue with their slide and have the guard available for Deion, which is how they solved that problem for the most part in the game.
Yeah, so if you want to mix it up and you don't want to slide that way, you can do some things differently. So you can do what we do here. And if you watch this play, this is what we would call, you've heard us talk about it here quite a bit. You've heard John talk about it. This is what you would call a chip. So right here is Myles Garrett, and these defensive linemen, these ends within a Schwartz defense, play really, really wide nines. That's what they do. So Myles is lined up well outside of Dawson Knox.
He's almost on the bloody sideline, Jerry.
Right, exactly. So watch what happens here. This would be known as a tight end chip or a tight end help on this play. So at the snap of the ball, you see Garrett lined up out there. Knox blocks him, rubs off on him, slows him up enough, and then we get over here with a rollout to the right and get a completion downhill. So that's just another version of what the Bills can do to slow a guy like Myles Garrett down, just to replay it real quick. Because if you notice, David Edwards had a guy on him, so David Edwards couldn't go outside to help him at that point.
Yeah, that's right. So that was a great job. A little bit of a rub. I wouldn't call it a chip, but it slows him down. And the other nice thing on that clip is Spencer Brown being such a great athlete, having those really aggressive flat sets, is he can invite guys inside and then have enough of them to wash them down. Josh loves to scramble to his right, and when he gets a willing participant, Spencer washes a guy down. Josh loves to get out there and throw on the run, and that play was a great reflection of, responding to the type of rush that you get that Spencer got, running him inside, and then on the backside, tipping your hat to definitely a king of defense, a monster Myles Garrett. So You're right. You cannot contain a guy like that, but you can do some smart things. We did a lot of play action in this game. That helped quite a bit. And you're right, Jerry. It was kind of a boring and conservative philosophy or game plan. And I go back to what I say all the time. Had we just completed a few more balls, I think that social media and the panic button wouldn't be just getting jammed the way it is right now.
Well, you got to look at it this way too, John. They run 50 plays. Myles Garrett had 1 tackle on the game, and it was the gift, half a sack that he was given by the NFL. If the NFL does not give him that gift of half a sack, Myles Garrett has no tackles. Not because we ran right at him and just kept him. It's the way we handled the situation and never let him be in a position to make a play. And just real quick, this last one I brought up here. And when you look at this play, this is a what you would call a pin and pull technique. This is kind of the second wrinkle run that the Bills had in this game. And so we'll go back to the beginning. And if you watch this, if you look at 93 and 94, they're both lined up on the 94 on the outside shoulder of David Edwards, 93 on the inside shoulder of Osiris Torrance. What that does is give both guards angles to block back. And with that, instead of worrying about double teams, you can go ahead and you've got Deion Dawkins to pull around and McGovern to pull around for this linebacker and for 30 and the other linebacker respectively. So we'll watch this one real quick. Just another cool wrinkle that the Bills put in this week.
All right, here we go. Torrance blocks down, pins him with a high arm. McGovern pulls around, creates just enough of a seam for Josh to get through. This is well blocked. If I had to critique it a little bit, I would have liked Torrance to probably drive his right leg up a little quicker, keep that hole a little bit wider. But the function of this play was to get the first down. And Jerry, I have a question for you. I think we see less and less angle blocking, pin and pull, power type schemes across the league. Do you think that it's due in part just to the amazing athletic ability that we see among defensive tackles, 3-and-1 techniques, that it's so much harder to control those guys, a step down and, trying to jam them and hold them in place between the power and speed?
Well, I think a little bit of it has to do with more of the style of interior play. I think you're starting to see defensive lines go back to getting bigger on the inside. And when you get bigger on the inside, you need to move guys a little bit differently. So it's kind of all goes along the lines of personnel. But I think teams mix it up and do different stuff. But yeah, a lot of it has to do with remember just not so many years ago we were in this phase of football where we weren't going to pay running backs and the running game wasn't important and we could do it with anybody. And now all of a sudden it's become running backs are important, draft them in the first round, everything. So it's cyclical, right? So I think that's a big part of it.
Well, and it's the evolution of the game. And that's the beauty of it, right? I mean, I think that initially the NFL started borrowing from college, right? Looking at what they're doing at the university level and the athletes saying we can maximize the potential. We can turn some quarterbacks into quasi running backs. So it's 11 on 11 instead of 10 on 11 like it used to be. And with there's so much more creativity in the run game in the NFL now than there was when we played, that it's really fun to watch, to dive into the all 22, dissect it, tear it apart. I think the risk, though, is you just get too fixated on your own opinions on a player or on a play, and you say a guy had just a horrific game because of 1 or 2 plays. And one of the things when I look back at the game today, I think that Deion, although progressing, Deion Walker, our defensive tackle, he's still doing a little bit of guessing. Bernard, to me, it seems like he's just not in the groove yet. Now, whether that injury is still hampering him, I see his angles aren't as good as they have been in the past. He's over pursuing a little bit. I think he's getting a little bit lost in his keys. So hopefully this game was a little bit of an eye opener, depending on what the result is from Shaq Thompson. And if you've heard anything, please let me know, because don't want to lose that guy.
No, I think that Bernard has just been injured all year long. I think it's ankle injuries. He's slowed there. Then you add the arm brace on, and you got the elbow issue. So obviously things are tough for him right now, and a lot of it is confidence. I mean, he doesn't have that confidence he had a few years ago as far as seeing his reads, trusting it, and shooting his gun and getting inside and making splash plays, tackles for losses, and things like that. But honestly, if I'm this linebacker room, it's hard to play linebacker in this defense right now because the way that offensive linemen are just getting up on the second level without much impedance, because that defensive line's having such an issue. I mean, numbers are thin, talent is thin, and it's just something we're going to have to work through. But yeah, I mean, looking back on it, disappointed in how they played, but still you got to be happy with the W. Wash it away in true Bills form. I'm sure they'll play like world beaters this week against the world champs at home. Again, I think the biggest thing is you got to really look at that injury report and see where you are. We lost Spencer Brown for the last 2 plays of the game with a wrist injury. We'll see where he is. We'll see where Josh is sitting. So there's a lot of question marks we'll get answered as the week goes on as far as injuries as they get ready to play Philadelphia on Sunday.
Yeah, big game. We had no favors done for us by the Ravens last night. They, as my father would say, they snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. Sadly, I think Tyler Huntley wasn't too bad, actually. I think he performed really well. He threw some pretty nice balls. They had some big glaring errors that, ended up hurting them in the end, but they really had a chance to help us out. So I'm a little aggravated by that. But again, destiny is in their own hands. You can only just win out the next 2. And if they get some help from somebody beating the Patriots, hey, that'd just be, cherry on the top. But Jerry, tell us what else you got going this week. Tell us a little bit about the Overreaction Sports Network, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, tomorrow night we got On the Beat. I'm trying to remember who we have tomorrow night. I believe it's one half of the Shout Buffalo podcast. It's not Mr. Perino. It's his partner. And, of course, I'm totally locking.
Well, just tune in and you'll find out. To all of our faithful listeners, just come on, join the show.
As I set that up so well. Wednesday, we've got 7 Days of Sunday. Hopefully Zig is off the IR this week and ready to roll. So Zig will be back with me on Wednesday. Then Thursday, we got Mafia Bets, which I guess I got to try it because our man Joe Miller keeps telling us how he's killing it. So, I'm sure the week that I jump on FanDuel and do the same thing, we'll probably get shellacked, but that's besides the point. But anyway, Mafia Bets on Thursday. We've got the walkthrough with Anthony Marino on Saturdays. We got a lot going on. Post-game show Sunday. We'll be here at 7 o'clock Eastern time or 8 o'clock Eastern time, 7 Central, to discuss that Eagles game. So lots of stuff going on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network.
Speaking of Mafia Bets, Jerry, do you happen to know the line for Eagles at Bills?
I do not.
Yeah.
That is one thing I do not know. Somebody
throw that up there in the chat. Love to see it. If not, you guys can dig it up. I'll tell you this, though, Jerry. Another big thing is happening this week. If you are of the Christian leaning, right? The birth of one Jesus Christ, and we'll all, not all of us, but many of us will be celebrating Christmas. But it is the holiday season, and from the Overreaction Sports Network, from Jerry, Joe, all the gang that Jerry just mentioned, we want to wish you all a happy and healthy Christmas season, New Year's season with your family, your loved ones. Keep them close, keep them safe, raise a glass, have a toast to each other more than anything else, to your community and to our beloved Buffalo Bills. And
That's
with
right.
that, go ahead, Jerry. You want to add a Christmas sentiment?
No, I was going to say happy holidays. Enjoy your families and friends, and have a good rest of the week.
Okay, well, I'm going to say it first. Today, tomorrow, and always, go Bills.
Much love, folks. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you. Go Bills.